Before I go the into the Salesforce user interface and start creating pages, uh, let's just again do a very quick recap of what we did yesterday in terms of creating the page and how we are actually connecting things. So you create a page, you create a Visualforce page, and you need an Apex page component on that, which is a required one, right? A mandatory component. Controller is an attribute of the page component. Correct. So this is where we call the standard controller. Now, when you are using standard controller, I have told you that when you are using the standard controller, you will be creating a page using standard controller. You will be creating page for a single record, detailed page for a single record. So obviously that record has to be from one of the object, either from account, contact, opportunity, lead, some object it will belong to, right? So whichever object record you want to display on the page, that object should be connected as a standard controller, because you definitely will use the set of instructions from that object, the logics of that object. So for that reason, you connect your page with a standard controller. You have the option of using any of the standard controller. You can call the standard controller for any object in Salesforce. Okay. So that's what we do. So we create the page with a which ideally should have Apex page component. We call the controller, the standard controller, as an attribute of the page component. And if you want to display some data, let's say if you want to display a certain field, the formula is within curly brackets name of the object dot name of the field. Correct. Now the object is getting connected here, so we are actually connecting to the object. Which object record needs to be shown on that particular page? Account. Which field data you want to see? Name. Now where do we define which record we want to see? Where is that defined? Anyone? So in the code you have written which object, that's there in the first line. Standard controller equals to account. So basically you have connected your page to the account object. What data you want to display, that you have defined here with the help of formula. But which record? Because I'm talking about creating a detailed page with the help of standard controller. A page which will display details of a single record. So where do we specify which record are we actually, which records information we want to see on the page? Where?
And the URL.
In
In
the
the
URL.
URL record ID. Yes. Okay. And why is that kept outside the program? Why is that ID not included in the program?
Because it will become static otherwise. It will
Yes. So
be
we just
functional for
keep it
that.
outside the program in the URL. Any web page, if you just uh, see any of the web page in this world, you will have the same kind of structure. Like even if you're doing a Google search, so some part of the URL is going to be fixed. Let's say in Google, if you are searching for hello, so when you search hello, the URL becomes something like this. Search equals hello, something like this. Okay, so this part always has to be dynamic. I mean, moment this changes, the result on the page changes. So that's how the structure of our page is also formed. The ID which is supplied on the URL, based on that ID, the data appears in the page. Right? Okay. So so far we are okay with it. So let's do one more example with the same kind of structure so that you understand it a little better. Let's quickly log in into Salesforce. Okay. So we'll start creating the page. Go to Apex. Enabling the development mode is one-time activity, so you don't have to do it for every page. Okay, so once you have enabled the development mode, it will be enabled. Till the time you don't go and disable it. Okay. So today we don't have to enable the development mode. We can straight away jump into creating the page. P1 is something which we have already created. Let me create another one today. Create P2. So click on create page P2. Standard controller equals account. Now I want to show some data here. Account name, account dot name. Okay. So this formula expression will be used to call the data, and this is just a label. Account name, or you can just make it name. This is just a label that you want to display. Template type industry industry form. Alright. Now let me get the record ID here to see what output we get. Getting the record ID of edge communications. Okay. So this name type, these are labels that we have put, and this is the information which is actually coming from the record, right? Based on the recording. Uh, if you want to make this bold, you can do this. If you want to make the label bold, you can do that. Just use the bold component or the bold tag from HTML. Okay. No. So we have called five field, the data from five different five fields of this record. The name, type, industry, phone, fax. And this is the simple syntax. Whichever field data you want to call, you just have to type it object name dot field name. But make sure that you're actually calling the correct field name. If there is a spelling mistake or something, that will throw an error. For example, there is a field called annual revenue. Yeah. Okay. Now, when you try to call this annual revenue here, account dot annual revenue. So this is wrong. So what is the correct field name here? How do you know that? All that you have to do is, in case you're not sure about the field name, I'm not very sure whether it is annual underscore revenue or annual revenue without any space, because field name will not have any space. In that case, all that you have to do is you just need to go to setup, customize, or create, depending on whether you are using a custom or standard object. I am using account object, so go to setup, customize accounts, fields. Which field are we talking about? Annual revenue. So take the name of the field from here. In case you're not sure what is the correct name, just go to this set up customized object name fields, and from there take the name of the field. So this is the name of the field. So it's annual revenue without any space. Now it should be fine. Line break is not there. Right. So we have created, or we have called 5 6 fields of information here. Now let us work with one or two components. Let's use a few components here. Okay. Page block. Page block is a component which can create a block on the page, a rectangular block on the page. Okay. Now what you can do is you can put this entire information inside the page block. Do you see this? So if you start the page block and then put some content and then close the page block, all that content will be included in this page block. Alright. So anytime you want to create this kind of a block and give it this kind of a look, you can use the page block component. A page block component comes with a default title attribute, which will allow you to put a title to the page block. Okay, so title can be a string, something like page block one, and you can just type in a value there, or you can call a value through a formula also. Instead of this, I want to make it name of the account. I can put the formula. So it will take the name of that account, Edge Communications. Okay, so that title can be like this. Now, inside the page block, we can create, if I further want to break my page block, there's another attribute, another component which is called page block section. Text page block section. Okay, so if you see, this part is appearing as a different section, the first three fields which we have included in the page block section. Okay, if you want, you can create another section for the other two fields. Alright, and you also have the option of putting a title to the page block section. Say like basic info, and here I say contact info. So we have created a page block, we have put a title for the page block, we have created two different sections, we have put a title for each of the section, alright? And these page block sections by default are collapsible, okay? If you don't want the page block section to be collapsible, you have an attribute here on the page block section, which is called collapsible. You can make it false. Okay, if you don't want your page block section to be collapsible, then you just need to go and make it false. The collapsible is an attribute of the page block section. By default, it is set to true, but you can make it false. Here it is. And you use say collapsible equals false. Do you see this? So we can actually remove the collapsible part from the page block section. Right. Okay. So now there's a small thing. I mean, even if you don't do the proper indents and spacing, then also your code will work, right? So if you're not using these proper indents and all, still your code is gonna work. But I would recommend that while you're writing initially, at least for next 4 to 6 months, be a little careful about the indents and do it properly. Okay. Otherwise, you will not understand the code. So I still, use this way of writing code. Um, Most of the people actually use it or write the code properly with proper indents and use the tabs to shift the code where you feel that it's going to be more readable for you. But at least even if you don't want to do it at a later point of time, don't do it. But initially you should do it. Right? It's going to take a bit of time. I see a lot of people writing code all in the same line. Okay. So that actually you get confused with that particular code. Okay. So try to work on that part. Okay. So the page block and the page block section, these two components we have seen. Now there is another component which is called an apex detail component. Okay, what does this apex detail component do? Apex detail component will basically bring all the details of the record. The apex detail component will bring all the details of this record, the one which has been supplied in the URL. So I just call another component called apex detail. Now let's see what this apex detail component do. Do you see this? Apex detail component has got all the details of the record, full details, along with the related list. What is the related list? Anyone? What's a related list?
Related list is basically the when you use lookup function, it is the master object. Sorry, the child object is also displayed on the master object as a related list.
So related list is
Again,
basically, yeah. What is that?
records associated with the parent.
Yeah, your voice is not that clear, but anyhow,
Okay, so basically the primary list followed by the details, is that related list?
basically the list of child records. So
Yeah, the list of child records, yeah.
okay, so we are creating the page for a certain record. So our page will be dedicated to one record. In this case, it's this record. If this record has any child records associated with this, those will be displayed as the related list. Alright. So if you see, the detail component basically is showing us details of this record, full details of this record, account name, number, all these things. Okay. Apart from that, it also shows you all the related list. Okay, by default. So this detail component can be used for doing this. Okay. So we have now seen two different approaches. Either you can call field by field data. Okay, so you will take this approach in case you feel that I just want to show 3, 4, 5 fields, then you can call it field by field. But if you feel that no, I want to show the entire, all the fields of this record on the Visualforce page, then there is no point actually calling them field by field, because if there are 30 fields, are you going to write 30 lines of code? No. Then instead of that, you just call the detail component. Okay, so detail component will bring in all the details of the record on the Visualforce page, as we see in this case. Okay, so if you just want to display a few fields, take this approach, the first one, repeat it, call field by field. If you want all, just call all. Now, I have a problem with this detail component. The problem is that I just wanted to call the details of this record. However, what I see is the related list have also appeared. I don't want the related list to be shown. I just want the details of this record to be shown. I don't want to see the list of opportunities, cases, and contacts associated with this record. What do I do now? It's very simple. On the detail component, there is an attribute called the related list. You just have to make it false. You don't want the related list, make it false. Right? So here it is. If you don't want the related list, you just have to make it false. And here is what we have. The related list is not being displayed anymore on this page. Okay. Right. Let me create another page. Just go ahead and create another page. Standard controller. Then use this account. Page block. Put a title to this. Account name will be the title here. Page block section. Okay. So what I've done, I've created a page block. Inside that page block, I've put a page block section. Inside the section, I've put a detail component. So ideally, I should be able to see the details of the record inside the section. That's what I'm supposed to do. Save it. Let's get the ID of the record. Okay. So now do you notice this, that this entire data, the detailed thing, has come in half of the page and half of the page is completely blank. The side is completely blank. Okay. Now the reason is that your page block, uh, the page block section component by default has two columns. Okay, so when you put the detail component inside the page block section, you notice that only half of the area is covered, half side is completely blank. The reason is it by default has two columns. So a page block section usually has two columns. But now what is happening here is it has two columns, which you are not able to see, but by default it has two columns. So my page detail component has got into the first column and nothing is there in the second column. That's the problem. Okay. So what is the solution? Solution is to make it a single column section. How you do that? Again, columns is an attribute of the page block section component. So there is an attribute called columns here. You can make it single column. See, just changing the number of columns actually solves the problem for you. Related lists are still visible. I don't want the related list. What do I need to do? I call the detail component. I see the related lists. I don't need it. What should I do? You just saw this. What should I do?
Make it false.
Make make it false. Yeah.
Where?
False.
False where?
Page, page detail.
Apex detail component. There's an
Yeah.
attribute called the related list. Now, good thing about visual force is that you don't actually have to write anything. You should just remember the initial few letters. Related list, okay, fine. RE, if you do, it will automatically it's automatically gonna show you the list of attributes, list of components. So that's the good part. Okay. So you don't have to actually remember the name, exact name, but you have to have the hint, at least the first few characters. You should know. So related list equals false. Even that true false also you don't need to write. That also it gives you as an option. Okay. And the other good thing about visual forces, so you must be looking into it, that how easy it is to create a visual force page and to get pretty decent look and feel of the page. See, it by default uses all the Salesforce default styling, okay, which makes your page look very professional. Okay. I do not know if how much of HTML you guys have done earlier, but if you are trying to learn HTML right now, or if you are even trying to do some HTML coding in an HTML file, you will see that usually your HTML files look very ugly till the time you have not properly done the styling and everything. It looks, the alignment is not proper, and the text appears in any font and all that stuff. So until and unless you don't go and do the styling, it does not look that good. Okay. But the good thing about Visualforce is that it uses default Salesforce styling, so you don't have to worry about that part. I mean, you should not be worried about how my page is looking and all that stuff. So for web developers, styling of the page is one area where they put a lot of time. Here in Visualforce, we really don't need to put that much of time in styling the page. We have default styling. Until unless you want to make it really jazzy, you want to give it a very jazzy kind of a look, I think it's okay. It looks pretty much in sync with the default design of Salesforce. Secondly, as I said, it has that IntelliSense thing. So all that you need to do is you just need to remember the first few letters, right? Okay. So that way, it's a very, very user-friendly language. Okay. Writing it, the output that you get, things are pretty easy. Now there's one more attribute here. If you see the detail component, the moment I have called the detail component, I see this big title here, Edge Communications. This has appeared. Okay. This is also because of the detail component, and you have the option of going and making the title equals false. So there's an attribute called title which brings in that big title. If you don't want to see that big title on your page, just remove that. See, title equals false. That title has gone. Correct? Okay. So I've created a page where I am showing the details of this record, all the details of this record. It's a collapsible section. If you want, you can make it, and you can remove the collapsible thing from here. Okay. Now I've removed all the related list from this page. When you say related list equals false, all the related lists are removed. Now your client suddenly comes to you and says, hey, you know what? I just want to see the contacts under this. Okay. He wants us to show the contacts, only contacts, not opportunities and cases. If you go and make a related list equals to true, then all of them will come. So I cannot go and make related list equals true. So if I go and make this as true, then all related list will come. I'm gonna display only the contacts. How are we gonna do this? We have to use a component called apex related list. There's another component called apex related list. Let me put it inside a different section. Apex page blog section. Title contacts. And here you are going to use a related list called here we are going to use a related list called contacts. So in a related list, there's an attribute in a related list component. There's an attribute called list. In the list, you have to specify which list you want to see. To show contacts, just specify that. Save it. See, it shows you only the contacts related list, right? But again, that same problem, it's just appearing in half of the area. The reason, page block section component has two columns. If you want this to be in the entire area, make it one column. Clear? So this is how it works. This is how our related list component works. So you can just get the related list that you need with using the related list component. Okay. Okay. Now in this related list component, there is one small thing that you have to understand, which is the list. Whatever I want to display, I will define it here. Okay. Now let's say I want to display opportunities. Okay. So same kind of code I'm gonna write for opportunities. It's gonna be apex related list. Title is gonna be opportunities. Create a page block section first. Title equals opportunities, columns equals 1, apex related list equals, okay. Now, what will be the value that I have to put here? List equals what? You want to show the opportunities. What is that I should put here? Type it in the chat window. What do you want me to put inside this? If you're creating the page, what are you going to put? Refer to this one. What do we need to put? Quick. Shashidhar says opportunities. Just opportunities. Okay. Now, what is the logic? Why are you saying opportunities? Why not opportunity? Just because this is plural, are we using that logic?
Basically, the objects are displayed in plural form. In
No,
no,
no, that's not the logic. Yeah, because most of the times you guys will relate to that logic only that okay, fine, let it be plural. Because, but the singular, plural, all this grammar we know, I mean, the program does not know, right? So, if you see the account name when I call, I'm calling account. I'm not saying it accounts. But while I'm trying to call contacts, then I'm saying contacts. What is the logic? Why are we doing this? Or what are we going to use here? So it's basically the
one to
child.
one-to-one relation.
Yeah. So it's a relationship basically, and what you will have to list equals to child relationship name. Okay. So it's not the plural logic. It is basically the name of the child relationship. So when I'm talking about opportunity and account, I'm trying to display opportunities under account. Basically, I'm talking about relationship of account and opportunity. Is that correct? So if there is a relationship, there is a child relationship name also for that relationship. How are we going to find? So I'm instead of typing it, let's go and find where exactly we can see the value. So where is that relationship stored? Account and opportunity relationship will be available where? Account opportunity relationship will be available where? Come on guys, we are all developers now. You can actually go talk to the client, get the requirements, data modeling, things
Setup,
like that. Setup, very
setup,
good. From setup, then where?
create,
Create.
setup, customize. If it's a standard object,
I don't know if and else. I just want this relationship is stored there, account opportunity.
yeah. So setup, customize,
Hmm.
and objects,
Which object?
opportunity.
Opportunity. The relationship field is going to be on opportunity, correct? Because that is the child. Relationship field is always on the child. Good. So relationship is just a field, right? So all that you have to do is you just have to figure out the child object. In this, obviously, opportunity is the child object. I have to go to the opportunities and look into the fields. That's it. Now, here, which is the relationship field? This one. This is the field which is connecting your opportunity and account. This is the field, right? This lookup field. Click on this field. So this is the relationship field. And here in the relationship field, you will find a child relationship name. Okay. So this is the value which needs to be put in the list. Child relationship name. Correct. So the logic is this. Most of the cases, in fact, in all the standard objects, they have used the naming convention as the plural, but that may not be the necessary. That might not be the case in your custom object or in a custom relationship. Right? Someone might have named it something else. So in that case, you should come and check the relationship name. Okay, so it's not just the plural; it's the child relationship name. So now you get to see the opportunities. Clear? So how we are creating page and how we are displaying the data on the page. So if you want individual fields, you can do that. If you want to bring in the entire details, you can do that. If you want to bring in the related list, you can do that. Right? Okay. Now, so far we have just been talking about displaying the data on the page. We're just displaying the data. The end user will come see the data. How about the end user wants to edit the data also? Now my end user says that, hey, you know what? Allow me to edit the data also. In that case, what do we do? In that case, we used to need to use a few more components. So let me just go to another page. Here the user says that, okay, first of all, let's just display the data. Account dot name. Okay, this is all read-only data, correct? We can just see the data, we cannot edit it. Now, the client wants me to allow him to edit the data on this page. Basically, an editable field. How are we going to achieve that? How are we going to do that? So this is very simple. All that you have to do is all that you have to do is just go and instead of using the normal account name, we need to use another component which is called an input field component. An input field component actually allows you to have an input text area kind of a thing, text box kind of a thing, where you can enter the value. So not just seeing the data, you can also enter the information into that. So here we will use input field component, and in the input field component there is an attribute called value. You can make the value equals account dot see this. Okay, whenever you try to put this input field component, it will throw you an error and it will say that input field component should appear inside a form tag. Okay, so syntax wise, say in in Visualforce, whenever you are using an input field component or any component which will allow the end user to interact with the page, okay, any interactivity component should be put inside a form component. Okay, so it's pretty simple. All that you have to do is call a form component. Do you see this input field component? What it is doing? It basically brings in the text box. Okay, it shows the value because in the input field component we have supplied an attribute where I say value of the account name. So it shows the account name in the text box. However, you also have the option of editing it. So instead of edge communication, you say edge com limited. You can edit, right? So now you have the option of editing the value. Earlier it was not there, right? So an input field component will allow you to edit the values. Normal, if you don't use the input field component, normal field values are displayed as read-only data, and you cannot edit them. Now, all that I have to do is I just have to replace the formula expressions with the input field component. Name, type, industry, phone, and fax. Okay, put the line breaks. All right. Now all these fields are like input fields. You can make changes in the data that you see. All right. Okay. So when I make changes in the data here, when I make changes here, the small thing is And whenever you are changing something on the interface, is it actually getting saved in the database also? Because making change on the page does not make any difference to the database, right? So only changing things here, do not commit the changes in the database. Alright. So if you actually want to update the name, like if you just want to go and change the name of edge communication in the database, then what you have to do, you have to perform a save operation. After changing things here, if you change it here, after changing, you should be able to perform a save operation. Okay. So how will that work? That's something which we will take up in tomorrow's session. So how we can actually introduce the action and how we can actually save the changes. So that's something which we are going to do in tomorrow's session.